Okay, that seems to be working. So okay, I think it's just about done. All right, part three of chapter 6 here. So I didn't get to body dysmorphic disorder the other day on Monday. Body dysmorphic disorder, or BDD, as it's usually called in the biz, because body dysmorphic disorder is quite the mouthful, is the idea that one has some defect or problem in their appearance, some flaw in their appearance that causes them to be deformed in some way. People think of themselves as being just monstrous, they think of themselves as being hideous. And for the vast majority of people, it is something very minor or literally not anything at all that someone is getting obsessive about. So this is definitely falls under the obsessive compulsive side of anxiety disorders. But BDD is one of the things that, again, as I've got it written up here, 1 to 2% of the population, so a lot of people. We're talking about millions of people with this. The gender difference is insignificant, which is actually kind of surprising. I would have expected more women to have this than men early on in my studies, but this is an equal opportunity problem. Um, a lot of the things that go along with BDD is just an excessive amount of time that's spent on grooming, worrying about your appearance. I mean, grooming 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day. I mean, imagine spending that much time sitting and looking in a mirror and going, ugh, I hate the way I look, or I hate this thing about myself. That is not a good way to spend your time. That's not a good way to spend your life. Is being, just upset about your appearance. A lot of thoughts and behaviors. There's a lot of seeking, reassurance from other people. There's a lot of seeking, oh my goodness, so much cosmetic enhancement of varying ways. Now, for some people, it's just about wearing a lot of makeup and trying to cover up. And that's fine. People wearing makeup, that's okay. If you want to wear makeup, wear makeup. If you don't want to wear makeup, don't wear makeup. It's your choice. If you want to spend a lot of time, putting makeup on every day and it's because you enjoy putting makeup on, that's cool. But there are very few people out there. I don't even think Nikki Tutorial spends 6 hours a day putting on makeup on a normal day, unless she's filming a bunch of videos or something. There are just not that many people who would be able to spend that kind of time without it really interfering with their ability to function otherwise. So there are people who spend a lot of time putting makeup on, sure. There are bigger problems than makeup for most people at BDD. It is about pursuing cosmetic surgery. It's about pursuing cosmetic dentistry. It's about pursuing dermatological treatments. It's about spending inordinate amount of time and money on these treatments. And the issue with it more than anything else is that they're never really happy with the results. So they keep getting more and more and more. And inevitably, the conclusion is going to at some point be that they'll have some procedure that goes wrong. They'll get botched, as the TV show goes. There's a television show on E! Entertainment Television, one of my few guilty pleasures as far as TV goes, is that show, because it is just no end of entertaining to me to see people having these plastic surgery disasters, and plenty of them. It is just a completely legitimate reason that they pursued cosmetic surgery, because they didn't like something about themselves, or they had some kind of problem, or they'd been in some kind of accident or something that happened where they needed something to get fixed. And then frequently there are people who go in to consult with those two very high profile plastic surgeons in LA, and fairly often they have someone who comes in who clearly has BDD, and they turn them down. And these people are very upset, and they're like, well, I'm just going to find somebody anyway. And they will. And they'll end up botched. They'll end up having a bad result from their plastic surgery. And oftentimes people who keep pursuing the plastic surgery side of things will end up literally becoming deformed, because they will get so much plastic surgery that they will end up having some kind of major problem for it. Your body can only go through so much before it's going to be like, yep, no, we're not taking another pair of implants. We're not going to be able to handle this. You'll have an autoimmune reaction to something. You can have granulomas. You can have all kinds of problems that go along with having just plastic surgery. And we've all seen and I understand the people who are in show business pursuing some of this stuff more than your average person, because their looks are, far more issue, and aging and all that sort of thing. But we've all seen, the actresses, the actors too, that have, gotten, bad cosmetic surgery, or too many fillers and too much Botox, and they've just made themselves look all weird. When you're talking about body dysmorphic disorder, you're talking about someone who has a flaw that is minor, or it's not a flaw, it's just a human variation that's completely normal. But there are certainly plenty of people who, have a little, like a little bump on their nose. Or, they got their nose broken when they were a kid and it's a little bit crooked. And if you want to get that fixed, fine, it's fine. Get it fixed. Get that, get your nose done. It's cool. If you don't like the way your boobs look, so get them done. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with getting plastic surgery inherently. The problem is with people with BDD is even when they get the nose job and their nose looks fabulous after they get their nose job, and everybody's telling their nose looks fabulous, they still look in the mirror and see a problem. Doesn't matter how perfect their boobs look after they get their boob job. They still see, well, I'd like to get bigger. I'd like to do this. I'd like to... And it never ends. And we've all seen the celebrities who clearly are addicted to plastic surgery. We've all seen, the cautionary tales of people who have these kinds of issues. And these are people who often struggle with multiple psychological issues, because body dysmorphic disorder is not just about body image. It's about anxiety. It's about obsessiveness. It's about depression, because a lot of people with BDD also suffer from severe depression, and suicide is pretty high amongst people with BDD. Suicide attempts is pretty high, because they think of themselves as being hideous when they're not. They're human. All humans have problems. All humans have flaws. We all do, no matter who you see, and no matter what their pictures look like on Instagram. That's not what they look like in real life. Instagram is probably a contributor to at least some body dysmorphic disorder for people out there. It typically starts in adolescence, no big surprise there. But the kinds of images that are out there as aspirational, when they're not based in reality at all, are damaging to a lot of people. If you look at an Instagram post and you think that's what that person looks like all the time, I highly recommend you go to some of these videos that I've watched on YouTube about how the photographs can be manipulated, and not just with Photoshop. Just the difference between lighting and posing and how much difference that can make. Just someone knowing how to pose for the camera can make such a massive difference. Just having good lighting versus having terrible lighting can make such a difference in how you look. I mean, yeah, I'm here, I'm on Zoom, I'm recording this. I have a ring light here because without my ring light, let me just show you the difference. Let's see, where's the number on this? There's without my good light. There's with my good light. It makes a difference. It's not, I didn't spend hundreds of dollars. I spent $20 on that ring light. My husband also does stuff in here, so there's a reason for us to have some good light. But, how far are you going to take it? Am I going to put a filter on the camera to try to cover up the fact that I'm in my 50s and I have some lines on my face? How much am I going to do? How much is okay? How much is normal? How much of it is acceptable for someone that's psychologically healthy? Body dysmorphic disorder is going, way beyond what, everybody's got their own issues. Everyone's got their body insecurities. Even some of the most beautiful people still go, oh, I wish I had, whatever. And they're still insecure about certain aspects of themselves. And we all sit there and go, oh my God, why would you? Yeah, but they still do because they're human. We all have flaws, and that's okay. It's part of what makes us human. But again, when you're talking about someone who has BDD, the treatment of it, it's a hard one to treat because there's so many components of it. A lot of it has to do with they have good insight or not as to what's going on, what causes it. Whether there's an actual flaw or it's just an imagined flaw also does make some difference in how their prognosis will be. If it is a legitimate thing. Okay, so there are plenty of famous people who don't have perfect faces and perfect bodies. Owen Wilson has a very, clearly broken nose in his history, and I don't think anyone would fault him for getting his nose fixed. Is he still cute with his broken nose? Yeah, he's adorable. At least I think he is. So, is that something that you should look at and go, oh God, I need to get my nose fixed. I'm hideous. Well, you got a crooked nose. Does that make someone hideous? I don't think so. If it's causing you difficulty breathing, then yeah, by all means, you should get that fixed. But otherwise, it's just a thing. I actually think Owen's more interesting looking than his brother, who has the, not broken nose. But he's more interesting looking. Flaws are part of what makes us human. So, yeah, it's a tough thing. But for, people who have BDD, the overlap between that and depression, that and substance abuse, that and suicidal ideation are pretty high. So that's the main thing that you have to look at if you're dealing with someone with that. Again, I never worked with someone who had really significant body dysmorphia because, we live here, number one. If you live in LA, I imagine this is a very common thing for therapists to deal with for people in LA. But for, and in other big cities where there's just more, focus on appearance, I guess it would be more difficult. But, you're not going to have as much of that here. Okay, so for treatments of all these varied disorders, and I've got a cat meowing in the background, dang it. ERP is exposure and ritual or response prevention. So what ERP is for obsessive compulsive disorder, what you are trying to do is get a person to tolerate the anxiety they feel when they are not engaging in their compulsive behavior. You are trying to reduce or prevent them from engaging in their compulsive behaviors. Like for someone who has a mesophobia, germophobic type situation, and they're washing their hands so many times a day until the skin on their hands is all messed up and cracked and peeling and broken, and they're still using Purell even though they got splits in their hand and it hurts like hell, and they're still doing it anyway. One of the main things that you do with ERP is have them with dirty hands sit there. You can set a timer where you have to sit for 5 minutes with your hands dirty. And it really does drain the power out of that compulsion, out of those obsessions. Because if you can sit there for 5 minutes without washing your hands, you can sit there for 6 minutes without washing your hands. And you can sit there for 7 minutes. And what you do is literally just extend the time for the person to tolerate that situation that they find distressful, that drives them to their compulsive behavior. What you will do is have them like leave their house and only check once or 5 times instead of 10 times, and you reduce the numbers of times that they are, allowing themselves to go back and check and recheck and check and recheck. And over time, you're preventing these rituals, you're preventing them from engaging those compulsions, and they realize they don't need to do it. Their anxiety is not increasing in any significant way from reducing a little bit at a time. Again, you're not going cold turkey, you're just gradually reducing the abnormal behavior that they're engaging in, those compulsive behaviors. And over time, the obsessive thoughts reduce and the compulsive behavior is much, much less. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to completely go away, but it means that they will at least have where, it's not going to interfere with your ability to function if you have to go back and make sure you lock the door twice. Getting something from a obsessive compulsive disorder level of behavior to a quirk, we all got our quirks, we've all got our issues. So if you can get something to the point of where it's not interfering with you being able to get out the door on time, where it's only taken a couple of extra minutes, that's not really an issue that needs to be, sorted by a mental health professional. That's just, we've all got our quirks. So if that's something you're engaging in, and it's taking an extra couple of minutes, big deal. That's not a big deal. If it's something that makes you late to everything that you need to go to because it takes you 15 to 20 minutes to go through all your ritualized checking and rechecking and checking and rechecking, that's a problem. So ERP actually just helps get it to the point of just being a quirk instead of a problem, and that's a very, very significant improvement for people. So some of the things that are going on with people who have anxiety that you're going to be trying to work on with therapy: controllability, the locus of control, whether people have an internal or external locus of control, is going to be something you really want to know before you start therapy with someone. Do they feel like that external forces are controlling their fate, or they have control over a lot of the things that are going on with them? You would gauge your therapeutic interventions accordingly, because someone who has a really external locus of control is going to need different kind of therapy than someone who has a very internal locus of control. Catastrophic misinterpretation is the issue that often accompanies panic or anxiety attacks, panic attacks, when people are misinterpreting normal physiological functioning for something bad. So you have someone who, suddenly feels their heartbeat, gets very aware of their heartbeat, or their heart starts pounding because they're kind of nervous, because they're having some anxiety. And instead of going, oh yeah, I must be nervous because I've got this, I've got all these things that I have to do, I've had a really busy day, or I just ran up 2 flights of stairs, or so many different things. And instead of interpreting that as being a normal response to whatever is going on, they think of it as like, oh God, I'm about to have a panic attack. Oh no, I'm about to have a panic attack. Oh God, I'm having a panic attack. There are people who end up in the emergency room thinking they had a heart attack because their heart starts pounding. And people get heart palpitations. There's medicine, there's caffeine, there's all kinds of stuff that can cause people to have heart palpitations. And sometimes people end up in the emergency room thinking they've had a heart attack, or they have a panic attack because they start, having that catastrophic misinterpretation. Again, I talked about that cascade of things that happen with your parasympathetic nervous system and your sympathetic nervous system, part of your autonomic nervous system. The fight or flight response gone awry is what's going on with most people who have panic disorder. And that internal physiology triggers a lot of cognitive things that are going on that will cause us to get more freaked out and it just makes it that much worse for people to deal with that scary aspect of their physiology. Thought suppression, this is something that people try to do. Oh, I'm anxious, but I'm just going to ignore it. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to work. Yeah, don't think of a white elephant. It doesn't work. People try, but it doesn't work. You can stick your head in the sand all you want, but the stuff that's going on around you is still going to be going on. So that is another thing that people really often try to do. They just try to ignore the problem that they're having that's causing them a lot of anxiety, hoping it'll go away. Guess what? It doesn't go away. And then, of course, that oversensitivity falls in with that catastrophic misinterpretation. Oversensitivity, that attention, paying too much attention to your bodily feelings can be problematic, especially when all you're paying attention to is, oh God, I'm so scared right now. And that's all you're thinking about. We can do things to distract ourselves from paying attention to those physiological things in our bodies. We can do things, again, behavioral training wise, to really affect that. So the next thing I want to talk about is all the different ways that we can use behavioral training in the treatment of these anxiety disorders. These are things that really do help. As I mentioned early in the class, I have been paid tens of thousands of dollars to teach people how to breathe, which is kind of silly in a way, but it is one of the first things that kind of goes out the window when we get scared, is breathing normally. When you get scared, you start breathing from high up in your chest. You stop doing the diaphragmatic breathing. You are breathing from the upper part of your chest. And the more you do that, the more uncomfortable you're going to be, because that causes your heart rate to go up, it causes your blood pressure to go up, and you just have a lot of issues with fear, making it worse. And breathing retraining is just that. It is retraining yourself to breathe more slowly, paying attention to your breath. And I'm going to have to stop for just a second. I've got this cat that is just fussing and fussing. I guess my husband let her in when he left. Okay, so breathing retraining is doing, oh gosh, my backdrop is all messed up, is doing just breathing. So what's going on when you're talking about breathing exercises is you are teaching people to respond to their anxious feelings by focusing on their breath. By taking a long, slow, deep breath in. And a long, slow, deep breath out. It is amazing how much difference just 2 or 3 deep breaths can do to calm you, to make you feel more focused, to make you feel less anxious. And if you can do even more, all's the better. There are a bunch of different, I've got apps on my phone here that have these cute little breathing illustrations, these little animations that have like a little expanding circle, just kind of thing going on with some nice ambient music in the background. Do you need an app to do breathing exercises? Absolutely not. For some people, that visualization is helpful, at least early on. And, there are lots of different exercises now. I think I linked a few different breathing exercise videos that you can find on YouTube on one of your recent assignments in Canvas. There are some really, really good videos just on YouTube, and they're free. You can just look at them anytime. I am not listing like, oh, I recommend this one. This one's the best. No, the best is whatever works for you. The best is whatever feels the best to you. What kind of voice do you like the best? Like, you can pick, what kind of accent does Siri have on your phone? What my personal favorite of all the videos that I found out there's one that's a woman with a nice, just gentle Aussie accent, gentle Australian accent, and I just find that accent to be particularly pleasant and soothing to me, because the Australian accent just has a bit of a lilt at the end of it where everybody sounds like they're happy, and I just find that to be particularly nice. But you might find that annoying. It just depends on, what you like. So, I'm not going to just sit here and go, "Oh, this video is the best one out there." Also, YouTube is changing every single day. People are uploading so many things. But the breathing exercises really can help you tamp down those anxious responses to a situation. It can help calm your autonomic nervous system and keep you from getting to feeling panicky, because a lot of times we start feeling anxious. That anxiety makes us start breathing faster. The breathing faster starts making our heart rate go faster and our blood pressure go up, and it just turns into this spiral of increasing anxiety. And if you can just be aware, not oversensitivity aware of what's going on in your body, not catastrophic misinterpretation of what's going on in your body, but awareness of what is going on in your body, and go, "Oh, I'm feeling kind of anxious. I need to take a breath. I need to take a minute." And literally take a minute, take 2 minutes, and just breathe. Nice, long, slow breath in. Nice, long, slow breath out. Do it, 2, 3, 4, 10 times. Anybody can do it. You can do it anywhere. Guess what? You're breathing anyway. Do you want to make that breath help, or do you want to make that breath make it worse? Because if you take a long, slow, deep breath in from your diaphragm, from the lower part of your rib cage, that is going to make you feel more relaxed. It's going to get more oxygen into your body. You're just going to feel better when you do the deeper breathing. You're going to feel more relaxed when you do that deeper breathing. There is a reason when you see a lot of people right before they get up on stage, right before they, get out on the field for a sports event or something, they take a nice, long, slow, deep breath, because it centers you. And it's one of the easiest things in the world you can do. But it takes some practice. It does take some practice to remember to breathe. It is the simplest thing to do, and yet it's one of the hardest things for people to remember to do when they're feeling anxious sometimes. So again, that is something why you call it retraining, because you're actually retraining yourself to respond to stressful situations with calm instead of with fear. Relaxation skills training is getting into more complicated and more time-consuming kinds of behavioral exercises. Relaxation skills training is involving large muscle groups in your body, and you're alternately tensing them up and relaxing them. And you basically need to have, ideally, a situation where you've got a very comfortable position for your body. And my preferred thing, especially at the foster home that I worked at for 6 years, there was a relief parent apartment that I got to use for my therapy sessions, which was awesome. It was great because it basically had the free run of a 1-bedroom apartment that was still attached to the house. And there was a very comfortable chair with an ottoman, and I would have the kids sit in that chair with their feet up. So it's kind of like a recliner, but not quite that reclined. And I would have them sit there, and it was a very comfortable chair. And basically what you're doing, number one, breathing. That comes first. You do the breathing exercises, so I get them in a nice relaxed state for that. And then the relaxation training would involve you sitting in a very comfortable position. And the first thing you do, and this is something that you can do for all sorts of situations, for yoga class, check your body. Where are you feeling particularly tense? Different people carry tension in different parts of their bodies. And when you're aware of that, you can do things to counter it. I personally carry most of my kind of bodily tension and stress in my neck and shoulders, and down towards the middle of my back, down my shoulder blades. And I used to, before the pandemic, I used to go get massages about once a month, and it's so lovely. And I haven't been able to do that, obviously. But for some people, you go through your body. So what I would have the kids do is tense up their feet. tense your feet up. Yeah, tense them up until it almost hurts. And then you relax. You move up to the calves. You tense your calves up. Tense tighter, 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 tighter until it's almost painful. And then you relax. You move up the body. You tighten up your thighs. You get to your glutes. Yeah, your butt, your booty. It's a bit crude, but when people talk about, they're such a tight ass. Yeah, people literally do hold tension in their booties. They hold tension in their butts. Your glutes are the largest muscles in your body, and you can have your butt be clenched up because you're afraid. You can have your butt, you can be holding in a toot, but you can also have your butt clenched up because you're stressed out. So you tighten your glutes as tight as they can go, and you relax. You tighten up your back muscles. You tighten up your abs. You tighten up your chest muscles, your shoulders, your biceps, your triceps, your forearm muscles, your hands. You clench them up and then relax. You move up to your shoulders and your neck and your face, even your face. You scrunch it up. And you clench all of those muscles very, very tight until they are almost painful, and then you relax all the way up to the top of your head. And it takes a bit. It takes 15-20 minutes to go through, especially if you're a newbie, to go through those different parts of your body. And you walk someone through it, talk someone through it. I usually would have some nice peaceful kind of, semi-classical ambient, spa music playing in the background. And I would talk these girls through these exercises. And it's amazing if they would practice these things. I would usually find a couple of audio things that they could go through, especially there were several other girls at work who had all kinds of anxiety problems. And I actually got audio recordings for them to be able to use, like on their phones or on the little MP3 player or something they had access to in their room. And because most of the girls had at least some kind of little MP3 player thing that they could use with headphones, and I would make sure that they had something like that available to them, and it would really be extraordinarily helpful. Now, it's not going to get rid of your anxiety altogether, but if you can, drop it down from, a 12 to a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10, you have really helped someone a lot with that. So that's a good thing just for anybody. You feel stressed out. You may not even realize how anxious you feel, but you're anxious. You may not even think about, oh God, I feel so anxious. Oh, I feel so stressed out. Oftentimes when people say they're stressed out, they're feeling anxious. These kinds of breathing exercises, these relaxation training exercises can really help that. Now, does that get rid of it altogether? No, but it can sure as heck help. And it's an awful lot easier to do than going to the doctor and getting a prescription. And it's free, and you have to breathe anyway. And the relaxation training doesn't take that much time, especially if you practice it. I can go through a relaxation training, set of things with my own body in about 6 or 7 minutes, because I've done it for years and years and years now. Like 20, easily 25 years I've known of this and used it. So it's something that everyone can do, no matter what. You can modify it in some way. I have to modify it. I can't tense up around my ankle because I've got a bunch of hardware in it. There are certain things you can modify. I've got some arthritis and things like that now that I didn't have 25 years ago. But you can modify these things and use it for virtually anyone. Systematic desensitization and situational and interoceptive exposure are all parts of very specific things to do to combat avoidance behavior for phobias. Systematic desensitization is a way to unlearn the classical conditioning that gave you a phobia in the first place. So when you're talking about systematic desensitization, you're talking about maintaining exposure to that feared stimuli. You're doing progressive relaxation training. So going through the breathing exercises, going through that bodily relaxation. And you go through a hierarchy of exposure to that feared stimulus. Say you're afraid of spiders, you've got arachnophobia, and you get your client into that nice relaxed state. Then you show them a picture of a cartoon spider, and you have them hold that picture and look at it while they're relaxed, and you're monitoring how much discomfort they're in. You go, okay, how are you on a scale of 1 to 10? And they say, I'm at a 3. And I'm like, okay, let's move on. You show them a more realistic drawing of a spider. And then they're like, oh, I think I'm at a 4, a 4.5 now. Okay, we can still keep going. Then you put a photograph of a spider, and then they're like, and they're like, how are you? Oh, like I'm at a 7. Okay, let's put this down. Let's breathe. Let's relax. Okay, you've done well. You got to where you could hold a picture of a spider without being super freaked out about it. Okay, that's good. The next session, you start with the realistic drawing, and then you move to maybe a video of a spider. And once they can watch the video of the spider without freaking out, maybe you have them, be in a place where they know there are some spiders, or there is a spider, but they're on the far, far side of the building or far into the room from it. And get closer and closer to the point where they can be standing near it and not be freaking out. Now, it does require you to have a spider. So that's generally not hard to find around here, at least. If you have someone who has like ophidiophobia, which is fear of snakes or something, that might be a little more difficult. It's hard to just go, hey, can I borrow a python? But for these kinds of severe phobias that are interfering with someone's ability to function, this is a really, really good thing to use for these folks, and it doesn't take that many sessions. You can go from having a really severe phobia to having very little of a phobia, or even eliminate it altogether in the best case scenarios, 4 to 6 sessions for something that had been really, problematic, kind of dominating parts of your life, and you can just have it kind of at least a minor problem instead of a major problem. So that's definitely worth the trouble for that. Situational exposure is kind of what I talked about, but for situational exposure, we're really talking about for treatment of like agoraphobia. When you're talking about the kinds of avoidance behaviors that people will engage in when they've got anxiety disorders, especially when you're talking about people who have agoraphobia, because that's obviously the one that's going to be the most debilitating. So what you're doing for situational exposure, so you've got someone who is like afraid of elevators, you have them, you go in the elevator with them and you ride the elevator, and you have them in that relaxed state first. And first of all, you can have them literally just step into the elevator, step right back out of the elevator. Okay, how you doing? Oh, that was hard. Okay, I guess I would like it a 5. Okay, all right, 5 is good. Let's take a little short walk. Let's come back, get them on the elevator, have the door closed, have the door open right back up. Okay, how you doing? I think I'm at about a 6 now. Okay, well, let's just slow down. Let's take a walk. Let's talk about this. Get them on the elevator, go up 1 floor, get out of the elevator, go down the stairs, go back to where you started. Okay, you survived that, didn't you? Yeah, all right. Want to do more? Oh, I think I'm good for today. All right, we'll start again next week. Meet you here next week. For agoraphobia, you got someone who's like housebound. Obviously, you're doing a house call, obviously. You literally walk with them 1 step at a time. You have them step over the threshold onto the porch of their house, down the steps to their mailbox, around the block, around another block. Get them to be able to get in a car again, to be able to drive down the street, to be able to drive around the block. Just 1 step at a time. But it's situational exposure to the thing that scares them. And the more they're exposed to it, the less scary it becomes. Anything that we're scared of, the more you do it, the less scary it's going to be. Glossophobia, you're terrified of doing, public speaking. Well, the more you do it, trust me on this one, because when I was in high school, I was absolutely terrified of public speaking. Now, I really don't give much of a crap about it. There's not a whole lot of situations where I'm really scared. Again, I was very nervous before I did a presentation at the Arkansas Counseling Association, but that was around a bunch of my peers, and I was just like, ah. But once I got started, I was okay. But for most people, everyday life kind of things, this is a real good way of just dealing with that fear, because the more you do something, the less power it has to scare you. Interoceptive exposure is about reducing the person's fear of those internal bodily processes, that internal physiology, teaching them to kind of just accept the physiological responses that may be oversensitive in their bodies, the heart rate changes, and focusing on breathing more normally instead of breathing from the top of their chest, and just sitting with it. Okay, so your heart's pounding. Okay, you're not dying. You're fine. You're sitting here in my office in a chair. You're okay. Your body's just being dumb right now, and you have to just have acceptance of that, and just go, okay, so you're going to do that again, huh? All right, fine. And you breathe. There are all kinds of things like that you can do to help people who have that kind of fear. So you have all of those in your repertoire. You also have medications. I talked about benzos already. The benzodiazepines are really good medications. They have a lot of benefit for a lot of people. They work really well. They also have potential for abuse. They have potential for addiction. So there are certain people for whom those are not great choices. If you expect to be needing medication long term, they're also not the best choice for people. If it is for something that you only really need, meds for, maybe a couple of days a week or something like that, then yeah, benzos will be great probably, and they'll probably work. Even with that, I would still recommend people investigate some of these other treatment things, because the less you have to take medication, especially of like the benzos, the better, and the less chance you're going to have of getting a dependency issue or an addiction issue. So if you can, only be taking medication, once or twice a week, or once or twice a month, once or twice a month is, probably preferable than taking it every day, certainly, and taking it a couple of times a week is certainly better than taking it a couple of times a day. So, those kinds of things. The antidepressant medication, so you've got the SSRIs, of course. These drugs can be helpful for people with anxiety, for panic disorder, for OCD, especially for OCD. These can actually help quite a bit. Do they eliminate it altogether? No. Do they work as well as the benzos? No, but OCD is not really going to have a good treatment response with benzos anyway. All it does is just kind of, numb you down and dull everything down. Tricyclics, those are the older types of medications that are used for depression, but these are also really useful for people who have both depression and anxiety, as I mentioned before, because they have some sedating effects. Clomipramine or Anafranil is also especially good medication for OCD. It seems to help more than the other tricyclics, so that is just another little bit of information out there. These are drugs that are generally quite safe, but they do have some side effects that are kind of just annoying. The SSRIs, the side effect profiles for those are generally pretty easy to deal with. Again, I mentioned there are some sexual side effects, potential weight gain, stuff like that. With some of the drugs. For the tricyclics, one of the biggest problems is just really, really bad dry mouth, which doesn't sound like that big of a deal until you have it, and it's really unpleasant. So that is something that can also cause people to not want to take these medications, but again, they can be very helpful as well, and you don't have the kinds of potential, abuse dangers with either of these as much as you would with the benzos, and combination with alcohol for benzos in particular can be deadly. So that is something that people very much need to be aware of. Okay, so you got a test in Canvas that's up and ready to go already. It'll be due by, I believe, the end of the day on Monday, although I should have probably made that on Sunday, but I don't like having things due on Sundays. Um, Great review. Crash Course Psychology 29 for the anxiety and OCD disorders. For the mood disorders, the Crash Course Psychology number 30. These are really, really short videos, and these are really, really good videos. These would be good things for you to review before you take the test. The test is pretty much, open book. I'm not having you do the Respondus Monitor Lockdown Browser for this one. You will have to use at least the Lockdown Browser for the next test in here. So do just be aware of that. Don't think that you don't need to have, at least watched the videos, read the stuff from the book before you take that test, because it's not untimed. You do have a limited amount of time for it. So do just keep that in mind. And you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Good luck on the test, and we'll see you on Monday.